Can you hear me?
Ian, yep.
I'm just having a few challenges here. I'm not sure. It seems to be all right now. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
You're clearly in the dark, Ian. I mean, obviously some things.
Got the makings of a song, I think.
Try switching the lights on. You might be able to see what you're doing.
Trevor, if you can just hum the first couple of bars, I think I can try and pick up on it.
Feel me.
My video doesn't seem to be working for some reason.
Your video was on. You just seem to have very low light in the background there. You need a bit more light.
Candle.
Yeah.
Pick your candle up there, Ian.
Yeah. It's a bit dark and a bit moving. I'll put the lights on. Just hang on a second.
Yeah.
Looks like load shedding is kicking in.
Is that better?
Okay, shall we get going?
Yep.
Is that better?
Well, I'm gonna launch in and just say welcome to everyone. If there are any reflections from yesterday, you know, sometimes when we've stimulated a conversation, there might be some thoughts or ideas or just something that comes to mind. So I just want to give just 30 seconds if there's anybody who sort of something was mulling and you wanted to share it from either the conversation yesterday or just something that's happening in your life at the moment that you've been reflecting on and you think it would be good for us to share around. Okay, so we've all been wonderfully thoughtless.
Mindless, yeah.
Mindless. As you know, Trevor, you mentioned that yesterday, didn't you? The difference between mindless and mindful. Very, very interesting words. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up the slide deck that sorry, let me just start again so that I can actually, it's the slide deck that I sent yesterday. And maybe let's just, so as I mentioned in the email, this was a series of, well, a quote, but it was a letter actually that was sent by the chairman of the student council of the UCLA University, the University of Los Angeles. And it was in the 1960s. And you can imagine that student campus in the 1960s, you know, there was a lot of turmoil. You know, the Vietnam War was going on, there were protests, civil rights action was happening. There was just a lot happening. And these are a series of kind of just words of advice and I just thought we're inspired and we might have a good opportunity to just look at them. So this first one, people are illogical, unreasonable and self-centered. Love them anyway. Any comments, anything that comes to mind when you look at this?
Well, when I look at the fake news about the COVID-19, then I don't think much has changed over the last 60 years.
Yeah, I think that's true, Herman. I think that's why I feel this is inspired, because what was relevant in the 1960s, we see human behavior remains the same. And therefore, you know, we need to step up to the mark. We need to be different.
I think it's even a wider spread simply because of digital communication. When I see articles of people making statements that 5G is the cause of the COVID virus and stuff like that, I just want to puke. Excuse my French, but so I think those who are having a certain amount of reasonableness need to step up quite strongly.
Trev, you want to step in there? I see you unmuted.
Yeah, I just want to say this piece of prose, I discovered this in the Reader's Digest about 30, 40 years ago, when that was all we had to read instead of watching TV. There was no TV around. And it's been one of my guiding light pieces of prose of all time. I think it is phenomenal. Whenever I get really annoyed with Herman Funk, I go back to that particular page and I read every little sentence in that, and it calms me down. Thank you, Herman.
Thanks, Trev. Yeah, I think for me, I think it actually ties in very nicely to what we were talking about yesterday with regards to criticism. Because if you read this in light with being criticized, and you say, well, okay, I understand that you're illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered, but I'm going to love you anyway, regardless of what your criticism of me may be, because I understand it's coming from you and from your perspective and where you're at. I think it changes the perspective on that criticism completely. Ian?
Yeah, picking up on what Trevor was saying, and yesterday's discussion. I mean, it's that moment between thought and action, and this is conditioning. I mean, you know, we, as Herman says, you look at what's happening now with COVID-19 and people's mass destruction of the shelves in the supermarkets. That's a typical case in point. So it's kind of, they say it takes 30 days to create a new habit. So every single day you've got to make a conscious effort to actually practice this, because I mean, we default back to what our habits are, and our criticism and our judgmental aspect towards the way we do people. So therefore that's the way we see the world, and that's the way we respond to it. So it's definitely a conditioning factor for all of us to say, right, for the next 30 days, given the situation we're faced with, this is something that I'm going to apply, and applies obviously to all the stuff we see on social media, the stuff that's thrown around. Everybody's now an expert on COVID-19. People have got lots of advice, and they say there's nothing common about common sense. So I suppose the same thing applies when you look at this saying.
Great, thanks, Ian. Selo, I see you had your mic unmuted there. Yeah.
Yes, morning, everybody.
Morning.
For me, when I see that statement, it kind of then immediately says to me, when you do something for someone, are you really doing it for them, or are you doing it for yourself? You know, when you love someone, you're actually doing it for yourself. And maybe the kind of little example I can give there to make the point, when you are on the freeway and you decide to slag a little bit to allow another car to come in front of you, when they don't give you hazards to thank you, why do you have to feel mad? Why do you have to take offense to the reaction? When you are giving kindness, you are giving kindness. So for me, that statement just actually summarizes to people are people, because also they can be loving, they can be kind, they can be, but people are people. At the end of the day, you must just love them because they're doing it for you. That's how I would see it.
Great, thanks, Selo. Guy, I saw you had your mic unmuted just now. Did you want to comment?
I'm all good at the moment. Just listening. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
Ian, do you want to pick it up there?
Yeah, just a comment, picking up on what was just said. I think what happens is when we show some love to somebody, it's almost an expectation to say, well, you know, I want to be recognized for that. So put your hazards on to recognize the fact that I've shown some love, when we should do it unconditionally. And that's always the challenge we have, is kind of this expectation of quid pro quo, when we should actually just give it out there and not actually expect something in return, expect those hazards to be put on and say, thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Trev?
Also, I think this is a look in the mirror statement, because if you absolutely agree with this, then you go and look in the mirror and say, hey, hang on a moment, those three fingers pointing back at me are, I'm illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered, and that's how people are looking at me, and I hope they love me anyway. So, Herman, that's why I love having you on board, because I know you love me.
Thanks, Trev. Lee, I see you want to pick up there?
Yeah, I think this is also about stopping a cycle. And Ian says this gap between thought and action, and there's this when you think that somebody is being illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered, because remember, it may be yes that they are doing that, but it may also just be your perception, because you're in actual fact, as Trevor said, you're the one who's ending up being illogical, but you're turning the finger back. And it's that moment to say, how do I respond? What is my way of stopping the cycle where we now just keep going round and round in circles, of just sort of battling it out. And at the end of the day, even though you might have started at some place of logic, by the end of this to and fro between people, it definitely has regressed into the illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered. And that's where the love anyway, you stop that cycle, and it now becomes more of a virtuous cycle rather than a vicious one.
Thanks, Lee. Devin, do you want to just expand on your point that you put in the chat box there?
Really, all I was meaning by that is that we're all dealing with our own issues. We're all dealing from our own place of comfort, and sometimes we have to remember that everyone's going through different challenges at the moment in different scales. If I look at my staff, if I look at my cleaning staff, or my interviewers, or my accountant, we're all at different levels and different stages and different panics, and naturally our families are with us as well, our spouses and our kids of various ages. So, we were always taught at Grace Point Church that we have to love the wronged people. And by what I mean, or what they meant at that moment, was that if you help somebody, whatever they do with that money, whether they use it to go and buy drugs or alcohol, or if they can, that's their problem. We just got to help those that we can. But we always got to remember that whenever we look at a situation, we're looking at it through our eyes, and everyone else is looking at it through their eyes. So that for me is the greatest challenge. I don't really want to put myself in everyone else's shoes, because everyone's coming from a different perspective. So some people it might appear to be self-centered, but I really just think that everyone's sort of building their little fortresses around them, and as people panic buy and so on, we can understand why they do that. So, how long will this go on? Is it going to be for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 months? No one knows. So it's a challenge, how to get up in the morning every morning and be positive. And as a lot of us will have people that will look to us for advice and guidance. How do we keep positive? And so it might appear that they're self-centered, but I think we just have to recognize that everyone's coming from their own place.
Great, thanks, Devin. I think some excellent points there. Lee, do you want to pick up from there?
Well, let me move on and let's look at some of the other statements. My screen is frozen, so I might have to just get out of this just for a moment.
Okay, well, while you're doing that, Lee, Cecile, you're the only one I think who hasn't had a chance to chat this morning. Cecile, do you want to just add into what's been said so far?
Sure. Hello, guys. I'm listening to all of you, and you're very deep this morning. And maybe it's because I'm doing some introspection here. I had an altercation with my husband last night about just something illogical. Well, I thought it was illogical. He obviously didn't, because he got very cross. So yeah, so maybe I'm doing some some introspection today. Think, was I illogical? Was he illogical? I don't know. The day will probably show what it was. But that's great to listen to you guys and your insights about this.
So I think this is really follows on from the previous one. If you do good, people will accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Do good anyway. And I think that's definitely something that if anybody wants to add anything, I think it's just a follow on from what we've already said.
I would like to add something, and
Yeah.
it's on the back of what Davin actually said, and he focused almost on the self-centered. And as he was talking about self-centered, I thought to myself, I'm a strong proponent of people getting to understand their what's in it for them, i.e. the WIIFM that Zig Ziglar wrote about in his book, See You at the Top, what's in it for me. And many people misconstrue what I'm actually saying, that I am the most important person in the room, because by that I'm saying each and every other individual is also the most important person in their room. And that until people actually start putting themselves first and thinking about what it is that will make them happy, or what it is they want to achieve in life, it's very difficult for them to go and help other people achieve their what's in it for them. So there's something on this play here of self-centered versus putting yourself and making certain that you are the most important person that you look after. And when you do that, then you can look after others. And I think that was somewhere along the line of where Davin was going, what he picked up in church. Davin, you might want to comment back. I see you agreeing and shaking your head there.
Yeah, Trevor, exactly that. You know, those of us who are self-employed and employ others, if we don't look after ourselves first, then how are we going to look after everyone else? You know, I've made the mistake often of paying every single person except me, and then landing up with two problems: a personal financial challenge and a business financial challenge. So we need to pay ourselves first, and by that I don't mean take the lion's share, but we need to look after ourselves. We need to remain strong, so that we can help others long term. You know, it's very easy for us to just look at, you know, this month. I mean, I've just this morning, that's why I'm off. You know, I had a good month financially, that's all good, and then the financials are looking okay, but I've just done my financials, which I don't really enjoy doing. But at the end of the day, we have to look after ourselves so that we can look after all our people.
All right, thanks, Davin. Herman, do you want to comment there?
Yes, I find it a very interesting conversation, because when I, for the first time as a young person, heard that I am the center of my universe, I so vehemently disagreed with that statement, because I didn't really grasp the importance of that. And over time and maturing a bit, I started understanding, and I've just received an affirmation of the truth of that kind of statement, that I'm the center of my universe. Because if I don't look after myself, I can't look after anybody else. And I think that's the gist of what we're talking about right now. Thanks.
Right, thanks, Herman. Lee, do you want to pick up again?
Yeah, I think Trevor's picked up on an important point. I know certainly I've learned that the hard way. I didn't have enough insight to learn this like Herman did at a young age, because I did actually stretch myself to the point of burnout, where I felt it was my obligation to keep giving and to keep doing things perfectly. So basically to always do everything everyone else wanted me to do to the best of my ability all the time. And if you do that when you've got a young family and working and studying and all the rest of it, then you are actually going to reach your limits. And then you know, as I found myself in burnout, then actually you are not useful to anybody. You're not doing good. The good that you intended to do is now just is spent on the recovery period. And it took me 2 years to get out of burnout. The thing that I'm proud of is I've never gone there again. Because I feel like I learned those lessons. I understood what got me there. I went through a process of understanding what got me there. And yes, so And what it meant is, and if I come back to this slide, what it meant is that I had to say no. There were some things where I'd now built up expectations that I would do this and I would do that. And eventually I had to say, no, I'm not going to do that. And yes, there were people that saw that as selfish because I had already set a precedent. And so now I had to step back and deal with people's just being disappointed. And that also took some inner strength to accept that I'm not going to make everybody happy.
Ian, go for it.
I just picking up what Lee said, I think one of the most difficult words in the English language to apply is the word no.
Short and sweet again, but I think that's absolutely 100%. Cello, you wanted to add on to that, and I saw Devin waving at us, so we'll give you a go in a sec.
Yes, I was just very fascinated with the word no, because that's exactly what I was pondering on as well. I was just thinking that some of the greatest leaders are not great because of what they said yes to, but they are great because of what they said no to. If you really look at history, and I was just really thinking about the word no, that is an important marker to, are you now a leader? Are you leading your own life? Or are you still following? That sort of a thing.
Great, thanks, Cello. Guy, you were unmuted for a second.
Hi. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's all about what we've chatted about, which is obviously very important, but also one's expectations. And many people get disappointed, etc., because they have very high expectations. And depending on your mindset or your thinking or where you come from, I struggle personally with that because generally I've had very high expectations of not only myself, but my family and people that I meet, etc. But as I'm getting grey hair, I'm actually letting go those sort of high expectations and trying to look at it in a different perspective. And I see Davin as a perspective leadership person, if one looks at his LinkedIn profile. Yeah, so just trying to tie those two up. And a couple of words that are coming out is, yeah, it's going to be interesting thinking about that for the rest of the day.
Great, thanks, Guy. Trevor, you unmuted there, but also want to get back to Devin.
Okay, I just want to cotton on to a word that Lee used, and that was courage. I believe it takes extreme courage to actually be following the lines of this piece of prose, and especially the first two lines that Lee's already covered here. Extreme courage to actually understand and follow and be different to what the average Joe does in life. So when you use the word, it was courage on your part to actually follow through on that. I was 100% with you there.
Thanks, Trevor. Devin, you wanted to add into that?
Yeah, just touching on what Lee said about learning to say no. One of the things that I've always learned is that no doesn't mean no. It's just it's not now. We're not going to do it now. Life is all about timing. So often when things come about or staff ask me to do things, we're not going to do it now. So it's a no today, but let's bring it up in the future. I do believe in God's time. And then it's all about priorities and what Trevor said about courage, So everything in life needs to be prioritized. And it's one of the biggest challenges in life. And my dad always used to teach me that, it's all about the art of classification. So we need to classify things and prioritize things. And that'll help us to justify, if it need be justifying, that it's a no now.
Great, thanks, Devin. We are sort of starting to approach the bottom of the hour, but Lee, do you want to pick up there?
Yeah, I'm going to just move on. There's one other slide that I think is quite relevant. We can always come back to this tomorrow, but this slide I thought was quite relevant for what we are going through at the moment, because this pandemic is unraveling much of what people have built. You know, you're hearing stories of people who have built restaurant chains of 300 different restaurants and are closing up shop. And in my own life experience, I saw my husband, I saw each of us build, you know, organizations, projects, and somebody come along, follow on and systematically dismantle it because it wasn't theirs or because they didn't see it in the same way. And if I go back to that word courage, but it's also there's something deep inside of you that has to emerge that says, and maybe what Davin was saying, it was timing. You put your effort into that, but it doesn't mean that there isn't something else that still lies ahead, that draws you on, that keeps you going, that you don't get stuck in the past of what was built and is now no longer.
Great, thanks, Leah, and thanks for your honesty and your sharing. I think it also takes courage sometimes to put yourself out there like that. So well done. I think what we're going to do now is I'll just run through everybody just for a final wrap-up comment. So let's start with Herman.
Yeah, thank you very much. Particularly that part now, and looking at the crisis we are in is also an opportunity, because simply for the new to be born, the old has to die. And sometimes I think we even have to be destructive of things that don't serve us anymore and letting go of them. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Herman. Yeah, sometimes we have to be constructively destructive. I agree with you 100% on that. Cecile, do you want to pick up there?
Yes, there's a lot to think about today. I must confess, yesterday was a normal work day, so I only got finished by 5 o'clock. So hopefully today I will be getting a chance to have my 28 whatever many days, 21 days of lockdown without having to work on my chit-chat work. But yes, great insights, guys.
Great, thanks, Cecile. Davin, do you want to just wrap up on your side?
Yeah, guys, I think we just need to keep encouraging each other and probably no more time than more pertinent now than ever is we need multiple revenue streams. So if one stream dries up overnight, one of my clients, to touch on what Lee was saying, they used to supply 8,000 restaurants with food. And now overnight, I mean, who would have thought a company with 8,000 clients would have no clients? So all of us are vulnerable. So we have to just reinvent ourselves. So that particular client is now starting to deliver to homes because there's no restaurants to deliver food to. So we're not invincible, and we need multiple revenue streams. And I'm glad that I set that up over the last few years. It's been one of my focuses. Yeah, that's it from my side. Thanks, guys.
Great, thanks, Davin. Guy, do you want to pick up there?
Thank you. 2 points. Lee, you are giving a hell of a lot of giving at these sessions, though. So, and I think that's what I thought about, us trying to give more. And then I'd like to follow up on the comment that Trevor made yesterday about this situation, and Trevor likes to use that word money, and Davin's used that word multiple streams of income. How over the next few weeks can we all put our minds together to help other people and obviously help ourselves to actually look at generating more income from discussions of this nature? These discussions are good because it minimizes stress. It gives you input from different perspectives, etc., etc. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Guy. Ian, do you want to pick up now?
Yeah, I think of all the slides, Lee, this is the one that resonated with me most because I've been down a very similar road to you in terms of building businesses and ending up in the same situation. So, but that shouldn't deter us from building again, and because everything is cyclic, and it's just that mindset to make it happen. And we have no control of what's going to happen in the future, but we do have control of what we do on a day-to-day basis. So, yeah, that was the slide that I say most resonated with me. And yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jens. Hello, do you want to have your wrap up?
Just my final say, I really like what Guy is saying, and to make things practical is always the point, you know, for forums like this. Once we make sure that this thing becomes an actionable thing and it becomes practical, then we are true to some of our colleagues, you know. Having said that, with the last slide, I just wanted to add on, I really appreciate the wisdom of it, because for me, it then just reminds me of managing expectations. If we manage our expectations well, in fact, let me put it to you this way. When two people break up, they have a divorce, it's because the expectations were not met. Something else was hurt, but you can't hurt another human being, really. And no other human being can hurt you. I mean, you don't have that kind of, you know, but you can hurt expectations. So I know when we build, we have expectations of where we are going. And sometimes when we don't get there, we then forget that there was a journey that you were taking. So for me, the question that we'll really be asking ourselves is, what have we learned through the process? Because if we hold a mindset of panic, then we won't learn anything. And time is not like that. Time is not that linear. Everything happens in the present. So even for whatever that you are building for, you need to continue building because you live in the present. You are never promised tomorrow anyway. So, you know, you are building for the present because you are in the present. What happens tomorrow, you'll then deal with tomorrow. You look at what did I learn yesterday. I think that's my 2 cents.
Right, thanks. Hello, fantastic insights there. Trev, do you want to wrap up from your side? Then we'll go back to Lee to finish off.
I just want to back up Herman's comment. Tom Peters talked of it as creative destruction, that what you should always be doing is creatively destroying what you've built so that you can rebuild something new or build something completely new. And that goes for business as well. And the experience, and I think what Lee's done by bringing up this slide and making us aware of coronavirus and how quickly that impacts large-scale businesses out there, is that the rate of change in the business world and in the global economy is operating at a rate of, or at speed, unlike anything we've ever experienced before. And it's getting faster and faster. And as I'm listening to this group of people here, just on this little forum, it's comforting to know that people are experienced here or are widely read and are able to bring the experiences they have just to add into whatever may be a weakness in your particular thinking today, so that you can apply to rebuilding whatever you need to build over the next couple of days to create those multiple income streams. So I'm loving what everyone is saying, what Davin is saying, what Taylor is saying, what Herman is saying, where Ian is coming from. Everyone's got critical inputs that actually help us to take decisions for the day and apply to rebuilding whatever it is we're rebuilding in the next day or week or month.
Well, I think it's just to say thank you to everyone. I really appreciate the insights. You know, when you're sharing something, it comes from a wealth of experience and thought. You know, we've been talking about mindless, but it's coming from a place of mindfulness and thoughtfulness that you've actually processed much of this. And then it really is wisdom. And I think that's the point of this forum, is that we are creating a tribe, what we call a positive, passionate tribe, that is based on wisdom. So I'll resend these slides tomorrow, I think, or today, so that, because there are some other ones that we can have a similar rich discussion around. I don't want to keep rushing ahead when there may be something that we could keep dwelling on. So let's see if there's some other aspects from this as pros that we can glean from tomorrow.